I woke up in a London hotel room that didn't feel like mine anymore. The sheets on her side of the bed were cold, untouched, like she'd slipped out hours earlier. At first, I thought maybe she'd gone down to breakfast, maybe she was in the shower, maybe she was just wandering the city like she liked to do. But the silence in the room wasn't the kind that waits for someone to come back. It was final. Her suitcase was gone. The closet empty. My wallet, the cash we brought, even the little stash of pounds I kept tucked away for emergencies, all gone. The room looked like it had been cleaned out with military precision, like she'd planned this down to the last minute. On the nightstand, there was nothing but a folded piece of paper. For a second, my heart jumped. Maybe it was a note, an explanation, something. But it wasn't. It was the hotel bill. 3 nights, due that morning. She hadn't even paid for the room before she vanished. Just left me with the tab like I was some stranger she'd shared a cab with. I sat there for a long time, staring at that slip of paper, trying to process what had just happened. My wife, the woman I'd crossed an ocean with, had disappeared. No suitcase, no jewelry, no phone charger left behind. She'd taken everything. I checked the drawers, the bathroom, even under the bed, as if maybe she'd left something by accident. But no, she hadn't. The strangest part was how normal the room looked outside of that absence. The curtains were still open the way she liked them, letting in the faint London drizzle. The mugs from last night's tea were still on the desk. Her perfume lingered in the air like a ghost, taunting me. But she was gone. I tried to think back to the night before. We'd had dinner in the hotel restaurant, fish and chips, a couple of drinks, a laugh or two. Nothing spectacular, but nothing unusual either. I didn't see it coming. There wasn't some big fight, no slammed doors or angry tears. Just nothing. The panic hit me in waves. First the confusion, then the dread. Where was she? Why would she do this? My phone was still on the nightstand, but when I opened my banking app, my stomach dropped. The accounts were drained. Every joint card we had was maxed out or emptied. She hadn't just left me in London. She'd left me with nothing. I felt my throat close up, a mix of anger and disbelief. My mind started running through possibilities. Maybe she'd been robbed. Maybe something had happened. But no. The missing suitcases, the cleared accounts, the hotel bill left like a cruel joke. It wasn't random. This was planned. For a second, I thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? My wife left me. That wasn't a crime. And besides, deep down I knew. This wasn't some accident. She wanted me to wake up alone. She wanted me to find that empty room. So I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the rain-slicked streets outside the window, clutching that damn hotel bill. The city below felt alive, buzzing, moving on without me, while my entire world had just stopped. That was the morning I realized the woman I trusted most had just turned me into a ghost in a foreign city. And I didn't even know why. It took me almost an hour to work up the courage to call her. My hands kept shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. Part of me still hoped there was some kind of misunderstanding, that maybe she'd left early for a day trip, or maybe she'd been forced into something she couldn't explain. I clung to those thoughts like a drowning man grabs driftwood. The line rang once, twice. Then she picked up. Her voice was flat, cold. Not the woman I married. Not the woman who used to laugh at my bad jokes or press her hand against my chest at night just to feel me breathing. She sounded like a stranger. Think of this as a lesson, she said. Just like that. No hello. No explanation. Not even my name. What the hell are you talking about? I asked, my throat dry. Where are you? What's going on? Her silence was worse than shouting. Then she said the words that carved straight through me. Without me, you're nothing. And before I could reply, before I could beg or argue or scream, she hung up. I sat there in the hotel room with the dial tone buzzing in my ear, staring at the wallpaper like it might explain what had just happened. But there was no explanation. Just emptiness. She was gone, and she wanted me to know it wasn't by accident. She wanted me to suffer. I tried calling back. Straight to voicemail. Again and again, same thing. I texted her, words spilling out faster than I could think. Where are you? Why are you doing this? Please talk to me. No response. That's when the realization really hit. I was stranded in a foreign country with no wife, no money, no plan. Just me, a phone that would die eventually, and a hotel bill I couldn't pay. I went downstairs, still hoping maybe the receptionist would tell me she left a message, a note, something. But all they had for me was the debt. 3 nights, sir. The balance must be cleared today. I don't have it right now, I admitted, my face burning with shame. Can I pay tomorrow? The clerk gave me that polite but pitying smile, the kind they reserve for tourists who can't afford the city they're in. I'm afraid we can't extend credit, sir. I stumbled outside into the drizzle, the weight of it pressing down on me harder than the gray London sky. I checked my phone again, scrolling through our photos, selfies by the Thames, her smile on the plane ride over, her arm hooked through mine as we crossed Westminster Bridge. All eyes now. Every memory felt poisoned. I sat on a bench across from the hotel and stared at the entrance, half expecting her to walk out with some explanation. But she didn't. She never would. Her words kept echoing in my head. Without me, you're nothing. That's the moment I understood what this was. Not a mistake. Not an accident. She'd left me here deliberately. To prove something. To destroy me. And as the rain soaked through my clothes, I realized I had two choices. Collapse and prove her right. Or claw my way out and prove her wrong. But first, I had to survive the night. By the next morning, the hotel manager had run out of patience. I woke to pounding on the door, not the kind of knock you ignore. Two staff members stood there, arms crossed, waiting. Sir, if you can't pay the balance, we'll need you to vacate the room immediately. That word, vacate, cut sharper than it should have. Like I was trash being cleared out. I tried to argue, even begged them to let me keep my bag inside until I could figure something out. They gave me 10 minutes. 10 minutes to collect what little I still had. My phone, a few clothes I'd packed in my carry-on, and my passport. Everything else, the suit I bought for this trip, the gifts we'd picked up for family, even my electric razor, had been taken by her when she left. Walking out of that hotel felt like walking off a cliff. The automatic glass doors slid shut behind me with a hiss, and just like that, I was on the streets of London with nowhere to go. Tourists bustled past me, laughing, hauling shopping bags, their umbrellas bobbing up and down like nothing in the world could touch them. Meanwhile, my whole life had just detonated, and no one even noticed. The first night, I tried to sleep in the lobby of a train station. They don't let you linger long, not when you've got no ticket in your hand. Security tapped me awake at 2 a.m., told me to move along. I ended up outside, under the awning of a closed shop, my coat pulled tight against the drizzle. Every time a siren wailed in the distance, I flinched. Every time someone walked too close, I braced for a kick, a shove, a stolen passport. I hadn't eaten since the hotel breakfast the day before. By the second day, hunger was a steady ache gnawing at my ribs. I picked at half-eaten sandwiches people left behind on benches, sipped water from public fountains. My phone died on the third night, and with it, the last tether to the life I used to have. I wandered aimlessly during the day, blending in with the crowds so I wouldn't look too much like what I was. Homeless, abandoned, invisible. But at night, when the streets thinned out, that invisibility turned into something darker. I was just another lost soul curled up in the shadows, trying to stay warm. The shame was the worst part. I used to think of myself as capable, dependable. The guy who paid bills on time, who kept things steady when life threw curveballs. But now, I was a ghost of myself, surviving on scraps in a foreign city, all because the woman I trusted most decided to teach me a lesson. I don't know how many days passed like that. 4, maybe 5. The blur of rain, cold stone benches, and empty stomachs all blended together. I stopped checking reflections in shop windows because I didn't want to see what I'd become. And yet, some stubborn ember inside me refused to die. Every time her words echoed in my head, "Without me, you're nothing," I clenched my fists and told myself she was wrong. She had to be wrong. Because if she was right, then this was all I'd ever be. I wasn't ready to give her that victory. Not yet. On the 5th morning of waking up cold and hungry, something inside me snapped. I couldn't keep drifting like a ghost through London. If I stayed on that path, I'd rot away on a bench and no one would even know my name. I needed food, shelter, dignity, anything to remind me I was still a man, not the discarded shadow she wanted me to become. So I started asking around. Not for money. I'd already learned most people look through you when you beg. But for work. Anything. A broom to push, a box to lift, a floor to mop. At first, they laughed or waved me off. Some muttered insults under their breath. But then, finally, a cafe owner took pity on me. He was closing up for the night and caught me peering through the window like a starving dog. Instead of chasing me away, he asked, "Can you wash dishes?" I nearly cried. I can do anything, I told him. The work was brutal on an empty stomach, standing at a sink, steam scalding my face, scrubbing plates until my fingers wrinkled. But when he handed me a 5-pound note at the end of the shift, I stared at it like it was treasure. Crumpled, damp, smelling faintly of soap and fish batter, but it was mine. Earned. That 5 pounds turned into a sandwich and a hot tea from a corner shop. The first hot meal I'd had in days. It tasted better than any feast I'd ever had with her. From there, the jobs multiplied. A delivery man let me help unload boxes from his truck for a few coins. A small shopkeeper hired me to sweep floors in the mornings. Another cafe gave me 2 nights a week at the sink. The pay was pocket change, but the work gave me something I hadn't felt since she left: purpose. The locals started noticing. A few regulars at the cafe nodded to me when they came in, like I wasn't invisible anymore. One woman even slipped me an extra roll one night, saying, "You've got good hands for honest work." That little scrap of kindness hit me harder than she knew. Slowly, I built a routine. I washed my face in public restrooms, saved up enough for a hostel bed once a week, and stretched every coin as far as I could. It wasn't much, not even close, but it was proof. Proof that I wasn't nothing without her. At night, I'd lie awake on those creaky hostel bunks, her words still echoing in my head. "Without me, you're nothing." And every pound I earned, every dish I scrubbed, every sore muscle in my back became my silent reply. "I'm still here. I'm not broken." Some nights I imagined what she'd say if she saw me now. Probably laugh. Maybe roll her eyes and call it pathetic. But deep down, I knew the truth. She hadn't destroyed me. She'd forced me to find a version of myself I didn't even know existed. For the first time since she left, I didn't feel like I was losing. I felt like I was fighting back. And that's when the universe decided to twist the knife. Because just when I started to stand on my own, I learned the truth about where she'd gone. It happened on a gray Thursday afternoon. I was hauling crates behind a little shop near Camden Market, sweat soaking through the one shirt I still owned, when I overheard 2 tourists talking. They were Americans, like me, and the sound of familiar accents made me pause. One of them held up her phone, scrolling through photos. "Isn't that sweet? She looks so happy," she said. I caught a glimpse of the screen as they passed. My stomach dropped. There she was, my wife, smiling, her arm linked with someone I recognized instantly, my brother. At first, I thought I was seeing it wrong. My brother? The guy I grew up with, shared bunk beds and hand-me-downs with? The one I'd trusted with my secrets, my life? But no, there was no mistake. His face was right there, pressed against hers in a photo taken back in the States. They weren't hiding it. They weren't ashamed. I stood frozen, the crate slipping from my hands and crashing to the pavement. The tourists glanced at me like I was crazy, then walked on. But the image burned in my head. The 2 people I trusted most, smiling like they'd just won the lottery. That night, I found a way to get online. A dingy internet cafe, sticky keyboard, the hum of old computers. I searched her name, then his. And there it was, plastered across social media for anyone to see. They were together. Not just together, flaunting it. Posts about new beginnings, dinners, weekend trips. Her in the dress I'd bought her last Christmas. Him grinning like a man who thought he'd stolen the crown. The betrayal hit deeper than anything she'd done before. Abandoning me in London was one thing. But leaving with him? That was calculated. Personal. She hadn't just wanted to hurt me. She wanted to erase me, replace me with my own blood. I sat there in that stale internet cafe, fists clenched, tears burning my eyes, and I made a decision. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't crawl back home broken and humiliated. If they thought I was finished, they were dead wrong. Because here's what they didn't know. London had broken me down, but it had also rebuilt me. I'd survived hunger, cold nights, and humiliation. I'd clawed my way back from nothing. And with every pound I earned, I'd found a new kind of strength. They thought they'd destroyed me. What they didn't realize was that they'd forged me into someone harder, sharper. So when I read the announcement that they were planning their future together, I didn't crumble. I stared at the screen and whispered to myself, "Go ahead. Plan it. I'll be waiting." And for the first time since she left me, I smiled. By the time autumn rolled around, London no longer felt like a foreign prison. It felt like training grounds. I wasn't rich, not even close, but I had steady work, dishwashing at the cafe, hauling boxes a few nights a week, and even some cleaning shifts at a pub. enough to cover rent in a tiny shared flat and still stash away a few pounds each week. And then the email came. The subject line made my stomach knot: divorce petition. I opened it slowly, like peeling back the lid on something rotten. Her name, my brother's name in the attached affidavit as her support. Remote filing, signed in the U.S., demanding I agree and finalize so she could move on with her life. She wanted it clean, quick, quiet. I sat there staring at the screen in that cramped flat, the buzz of traffic outside mixing with the hammering of my heart. They really thought I'd just fold, that I'd sign the papers from across the ocean, bless their little fairy tale, and disappear from the story like I'd never existed. I closed the laptop and laughed, a bitter, low sound that startled even me. No, they weren't going to get rid of me that easily. Instead of signing, I waited. Weeks turned into months. The solicitor emailed again, polite but firm. Please respond at your earliest convenience. I didn't. A month later, another notice. Failure to cooperate may result in delays and penalties. Good. Let it drag. Let her squirm. Meanwhile, I kept my head down and worked. Every shift was fuel. Every pound saved a weapon I'd use later. No one in London knew the details, but some could tell there was a storm behind my eyes. The cafe owner once clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You've got fight in you, lad. Don't waste it." Back in the States, they were moving fast. I saw it online. Engagement photos, wedding hashtags, save the dates sent out like candy. Her in a white dress, him in the suit I helped him pick out 2 years ago. My own brother. And through it all, she kept pushing those divorce papers like I was just a signature away from disappearing. But every time her lawyer emailed, every time she probably checked her inbox expecting compliance, I smiled. Because I knew something she didn't. A marriage doesn't end until both parties agree. And I wasn't agreeing. Not yet. I let her plan her perfect little ceremony. Let her bask in the fantasy that she'd buried me in London. All the while, I was working, saving, growing stronger. And the whole time, I thought about what it would feel like to stand in front of them, not as the broken man she abandoned, but as the one thing she never expected, the husband she couldn't erase. I wasn't just waiting. I was sharpening the knife. When I finally stepped off the plane back onto U.S. soil, I felt like a man who had been away for years, not months. London had aged me, carved lines into my face, toughened my hands. But it had also burned away the version of me she thought she'd left behind. I didn't rush straight to them. No, I kept low, quiet. I stayed with an old friend for a few days, someone outside the family circle who wouldn't ask too many questions. Every night, I checked their updates. They were counting down the days to the wedding like it was Christmas morning. Her posts oozed confidence. His had that smug undercurrent, like he'd finally won the prize. Neither of them had any idea I was back. The invitations had gone out weeks earlier, of course. I hadn't received one, but I didn't need one. I knew the date, the place, even the exact time. And I knew that walking into that hall would be the moment everything came full circle. The morning of the wedding, I stood in front of the mirror in a suit I'd bought with my own money. Not hers, not ours, not a hand-me-down. Mine. It wasn't expensive, but it fit, and that was enough. I looked at myself and didn't see the ghost she abandoned in London. I saw a man who'd been broken and rebuilt with fire in his chest. As I drove to the venue, I thought about every night on those cold benches, every blister from dishwashing, every pound scraped together from sweat and grit. All of it had led to this. The hall was packed when I arrived. Family, friends, co-workers, people who had whispered about me behind closed doors, no doubt, wondering why I'd vanished. I slipped in unnoticed at first, standing near the back as the ceremony began. Then the doors opened, and there she was, dressed in white, glowing with that smug radiance of someone who thought she'd won. My brother stood tall beside the officiant, chest puffed out like a man about to claim his prize. Their eyes met, and she smiled, the same smile she used to give me. I felt a calmness settle over me, heavier than any rage. Because I knew what was about to happen, and I knew nothing would prepare them for it. She probably thought, if she noticed me at all, that I was there to beg, to make a scene, to embarrass myself in some desperate attempt to win her back. She couldn't have been more wrong. This wasn't about her anymore. This was about me. About reclaiming my dignity, my voice, the truth they'd both tried to bury. I stood quietly, hands folded in front of me, waiting for the moment. When the officiant asked if anyone had reasoned these two shouldn't be wed, the air in the room went still. No one moved. No one spoke. And that's when I took my first step forward. The officiant's words were still hanging in the air when I stepped forward. Every head in the room turned, a ripple of whispers following me as I walked calmly down the aisle. My shoes echoed against the polished floor, louder than my heartbeat, louder than the silence pressing down on everyone. My brother's face went pale first. He hadn't expected me. Not here, not today. My wife. No, my wife still blinked like she was seeing a ghost. For a second, her lips even curved into a smile, the kind that said she thought she knew why I was here. To plead, to break, to make a fool of myself. But I didn't falter. I reached the front, turned to the officiant, and lifted my voice just enough for the entire room to hear. Sorry to interrupt, I said evenly, but I have something important to share. A hush fell deeper over the crowd. You could feel the tension snapping like wires ready to burst. This woman, I continued, nodding toward her, is still my wife. The divorce never went through, which means whatever is happening here today isn't a wedding. It's a joke. The words landed like a hammer. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A few people covered their mouths. Someone in the back muttered, "Oh my God." My brother stammered, That's not true," but the panic in his voice gave him away. She froze, gripping the bouquet so tightly the flowers trembled. You didn't sign?" Her voice cracked, loud enough for the microphone to catch. I looked her dead in the eye. No, I didn't. The silence that followed was the purest satisfaction I'd ever felt. Not rage, not revenge, just the cold, clean truth hanging in the air, undeniable. Their carefully built lie collapsed in front of everyone they'd invited to celebrate it. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to gloat. I simply turned, straightened my jacket, and walked back down the aisle. Every step felt lighter, like I was shedding the weight of London, the betrayal, the nights spent in the cold. Behind me, I could hear the chaos erupting. Voices raised, chairs scraping, her crying out, my brother snapping at the officiant. None of it mattered anymore. Because for the first time since she left me, I wasn't carrying the shame. They were. When I reached the doors, I paused just long enough to look back once. She stood there in her white dress, face crumbling, my brother beside her red with humiliation. The guests stared at them like they were strangers, frauds, liars. I didn't say another word. I just pushed the doors open and stepped out into the sunlight. And in that moment, I realized she had been right about one thing. Without her, I wasn't the same man anymore. I was stronger,